So, hello and welcome here from the Unity editor for the first time. And before we actually start dissecting all those parts that UI Toolkit has and sort of go over those things with some deep dives and touch all of them, let's just have a very first quick overview of how this thing looks and feels and how we can make a very simple basic setup and actually bring something onto this game view and have it running. So I'm here in a brand new Unity project. I just used the 2D presets because we don't need anything fancy. There is nothing added, no packages, nothing, just a brand new project. And now I will, for this test thing, I will not even create a subfolder or anything here. The only question that we now might have is where do we actually find our UI Toolkit stuff and how do we actually interact with it? So the first thing that you might want to do is go over here. Oh, one little note. Now, if you want to do what I'm doing right now, I think there is a little section somewhere else on the Unity versions that we are going to use. However, the only thing that you will need is a 2022 version if you don't want to mess around with the preview packages. If you want to be able to just follow along what I'm doing, you will have to use a 2022 version, because in those versions UI Toolkit is basically built in. You don't need any importing it through the package manager or loading loading it some other way. It is built in and ready to use. And so now, how are we going to use it? We are going to go on Window and UI Toolkit down here. And now you can have a look at the samples. We will later have a look at the debugger. What I want to show you now is the basic editor that we are going to use and where a lot of work is going to happen. Now, for me, it's more convenient for those videos if I just put it in here next to my game view. And here you can see this section here basically is our UI builder in which most of our work is going to happen. Here, and obviously in the script editor, probably even a bit more work is going to happen in our code editor. So this is the UI builder, and let's just quickly have a first glance at what is happening here. Now, here in the middle, we have sort of our editable area, or our current canvas that we are working on. Now you can see we are having one unsaved file. Now the first thing that you should probably do is save your file and give it some name. Let's just call this test layout. We are just having our test layout, and this here is the section where we will be able to observe what is actually happening. Now let's see if we just take a visual element and throw it over here. You cannot see much, but you can see that something changed. We have some element on our canvas. And now we are going to cover how to edit this, how to change something about this deeply in the upcoming lessons. I will just quickly throw something onto this element, just give it some background such that we can see something. Now then, don't forget to save quite often in the meantime. Now, by now with this, with the latest version that I'm using here, I had fewer bugs than before. In the beginning, you had all sorts of bugs appearing from time to time, and then this might have messed up your current save, and you sometimes lost some of your work. This is not happening so often anymore. Now, let's just briefly look at what else is happening here. Up here in this first section, we are going to we're going to create and load new style sheets and define our classes. Now, if you don't know what that means yet, that will be clear. That will be clear later, and we will cover this pretty deeply. Now, then here, what we have here is our hierarchy, where we will sort of see a description of this structure of the parent-child relationships of our elements. You can see if I add a new element, it becomes a child of the current element, and that way we can see sort of the structure. We'll talk about what a hierarchy is and how we can use it in depth later. Now, then the next thing that we can find here is the so-called library, where you're basically having the built-in components of UI Toolkit that you can use. You can see a lot of those things might be familiar to you. You might have some imagination what they are, a button, a text field, whatever. So those things you will find here, and we will talk about how we can use this project thing and whatever else there might be. And finally, what you can find on the right side here is your inspector, and you can see this is sort of a little bit of a copy of your Unity inspector to have some sort of familiar workflow. This is sort of your inspector inside of UI Builder, and here we will be able to manipulate our elements and do all sorts of things, and we will cover that in all sorts of chapters, because this is sort of this is touching different behavior and different things that are spread over the chapters. And now that's it for a first preview, I would say, for the UI Builder. Now let's just see what other files, except from this one layout file that we created, we have to consider for your UI Toolkit workflow. And for that, what I'm going to do, I'm first going to save, then I'm going to create new USS. Now this is creating a USS file. Now we don't have to understand what that means so far. Let's just call it test USS. This will, however, also save a file. You can see it has a different icon. And now here I could add a class and do whatever. Let's just add a test class. Let's set something on this test class. I can, for example, set a small border radius. Now I will take this class, throw it onto this element, and you can see my element gets some rounded corners. Let's save that. And now for a third type of files that we might need, I could just now create a normal C# script and define some behavior in the C# script, and then throw it on the element. Now we are not going to do this in this first example yet. We are going to create lots of those classes later, but for now, let's just connect this such that we can actually see something in the game view. And for that, you have some sort of built-in or provided glue from Unity. And one very simple way how we can do this is we are in one of our scenes. Now we can go here to UI Toolkit. We could do this by creating an empty game object and then adding some component. Or what we can do is just directly go to UI Toolkit, UI document. Now let's select this game object. And now we can see we have one component here, which is called UI document. This component we will later reference in the script very often. And this component has an automatic panel setting that it created. You can see down here we have a new folder, UI Toolkit, and here you can see a panel setting where you can set some basic settings for your general appearance, some things like DPI, things like that. We don't have to go too deep on this, because those default settings are working pretty well here for our test example. And now we can see the only thing that I have to do is here on the source asset, it's expecting to choose one of our layout files. And this is just a layout file that we created down here, the one that we worked on here. So we worked on this file, we saved it, this generated this test layout UXML file. And this is the thing that we have to choose here on the source asset. And that is enough to actually connect, bring everything together to connect it and actually see something in the game view. And you can see that's basically it. That's our first little tiny UI example. And we are going to repeat this step probably 100 times throughout the course. I will not show it each and every time because I think you will get used to it very quickly. But this is sort of the most simple way how to set up a UI Toolkit project and how to preview how it actually looks in your game. And all of the other things we will cover step by step throughout the course. So that's it for this first tiny example. And I hope to see you in the next chapter.